You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Mal Chia. Let's load up the cart. This Week in E-Commerce, episode 19, the no foreplay episode. Straight in, Paul. How are you?
Yep. Good. How you doing, Mal?
Very good. Hopefully we don't get censored for that one. All right, we're going to dive straight into it because Paul does need to leave partway through. So first up is we're looking at Etsy. Etsy, who I'm actually a huge fan of. I really enjoy Etsy. They have laid off 225 of their staff after what their CEO is saying is essentially flat sales. And they kind of looked at the pandemic and saw the growth they had then, and then the last couple of years, they essentially just haven't grown. Why do you think that is?
I've been thinking about this, really trying to it's got to be Temu or is that got to be Amazon or whatever, but I can't pin it. I can't work it out. You know, I was just on a meeting before this with a client who started on Etsy and did so well, actually buying from Etsy wholesale. I've never actually bought anything off Etsy, but I would be interested to know. I mean, I don't know how much of their business is wholesale, how much of their business is kind of that D2C, but that's a massive change. 225 employees notified on a live stream, which is a bit awkward. Unfortunate timing, holiday season doesn't really put it down to shares drop. Doesn't really put it down to anything. It just says like, sorry, we're sacking people and it's going to cost us 30 million to sack people. So I can't, I didn't see it coming. I don't know if it's just softer sales.
It's just flat growth, like no growth. Yeah. I look at it and go, I think part of it's like, Etsy's meant to be for creators. You know, it was originally there for creators to be able to sell their wares, whatever it is, you know, have it personalized. But now there's so many different avenues, you know, like they can do that now on Amazon. You can go D2C. There's so many different avenues for creators to do that. You can go on Patreon, do something similar as well. That I guess, you know, Etsy just hasn't evolved. Having said that, I do like Etsy quite a lot. My wife uses Etsy all the time. But for me, it's just, I think there's just so many other options for retailers, but particularly like creators, you know, those makers, I should say, to be able to go and sell their products.
I think you're right. I mean, it has to be that, right? Like we have access to eBay, Amazon, Etsy. It's not hard to build. I mean, we know Shopify's grown. Shopify doesn't give you the audience that Etsy does, but it's grown and there's a lot of newbies trying to build Shopify stores. I would have to hazard a guess and say that all of that has contributed to people trying to own their own channels. And, you know, I definitely think Shopify's taking a bit of that because some of these creators are popping up on Shopify. But yeah, a little bit sad and a little bit unexpected, but hopefully they kick on.
Now, one story which I thought was much more exciting was actually that Barbeques Galore are leading the charge in terms of the adoption of open banking, which is a really cool one. Which is effectively what it means is that they are going to allow their customers to pay via OSCO. Which is the open banking protocol, which allows you to pay directly from your bank account without having to do an electronic funds transfer. So you can just do a payment. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. It's going to work through the WAAVE app, that's WAAVE, with their which is owned by the payment orchestrator Gravy, which is GR4VY. God, gotta love those names. But allowing consumers to pay directly from their bank account, and thus merchants and consumers avoiding being slugged with those extra 1.29% fees on top of your transaction.
Not bad. I kind of like this. I mean, I use that. Like, I get that little OSCO message on my phone, so that's how I know that I'm using it. But I think that I like it. I think merchant fees typically for an e-com business sit around 3.5% to 4%. So it's not, to put that into perspective, it's more than most brands spend on rent. So it's a fair bit. So anything that kind of can lean in the face, anything that can kind of alleviate that 1 or 2% off the cost base, I'm really happy with. And I think anything that provides a little bit of choice to consumers, I'm also in favour of. So it's off to barbecues. Well, I love this one. Great.
So do I. Look, it actually surprised me how long it's actually taken for something like this to happen.
Mm.
Given that, OSCO has been around for quite a while, the changes with open banking have also been around for quite a while. Now the ability for people just to avoid paying by credit card, having different options to make that payment. When you think about it, for $100 purchase, you're probably not stressing about it too much. But if you think about going out to a restaurant, you think about booking flights, so you think about buying white goods, for instance, you buy a fridge, online from appliances online, you pay $999. Someone's got to wear that credit card transaction, whether it's you or whether it's whether it's the consumer or whether it's the merchant. Someone's going to wear that transaction fee. Now, if you're effectively taking that off, that's an extra 1% to your bottom line, which you just add just by encouraging your customers to go this to pay to use this different payment option instead. I think it's great, and I do hope that more people use it. That once it comes out, more people do use it, because credit cards are effectively a nice little nice little tax which banks get to Amex and Mastercard and Visa get rich on.
Yeah, I mean, a company like Barbeques Galore, another 1% on the bottom line is probably quite significant. So yeah, really clever. Like this.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. So definitely watch the space. Hopefully we can find out more about it. We've been in touch with the with the company WAAVE just to find out more about how it works. They do have a Shopify integration, so I believe that Shopify merchants can actually start to look at it now. And I'm keen to do some more digging and figure out how this all works as well.
Very cool.
All right. Now, one which definitely caught my eye this week is that there was the COP28 summit, which was basically the UN summit to look at climate change, what action was going to be taken on climate change. And the big news out of that one, after Saudi Arabia and Iraq threatened to effectively stand in the way of any deal getting done, was that a deal was eventually done to look at how to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. So effectively looking at how to reduce fossil fuels. Now, what do fossil fuels have to do with e-commerce? Well, a big part of e-commerce is, as you know, it's always about apparel. Fashion, apparel make up such a big chunk of what we do. And what most people don't understand is that most of the fabrics, most of the textiles are actually petroleum-based. So if you look at polyester, nylon, and fabrics like that, which are in everything, this t-shirt which I'm wearing, the trackies I'm wearing, your shoes, that's all made out of petroleum byproducts, and also any plastic as well. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what does this mean for the industry as a whole? If there's now going to be this roadmap, does this mean that it's going to be harder to attain those fabrics, and suddenly the price of materials is going to go up, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, or what's going to have to happen? I feel there's going to be a big change in the industry. I know a lot of people are looking at things like recycled polyester and like the likes of LSKD, Ryderwear, Lululemon, other brands have already started using recycled polyester in their garments. But is there a wider change which is going to happen here?
Everyone's and those brands that you just mentioned are obviously big and probably have done a bit of research on this. I think there's no doubt it's got to change. The interesting thing is I don't know too much about these sustainable materials. I like hemp as a material for clothing. I don't know if that's any less dependent on fossil fuels than anything else, but I really like it. But I think a lot of people are talking about, I guess, people shopping in an ethical way. But that's a lot of talk at the moment. I think what will force that is the dollar going up, and it sounds like it will. It sounds like it will get more expensive to produce your typical, particularly your fast fashion garments and so on. And there's one thing that is a great. There's one thing that will escalate change pretty quickly, and that's rising costs. So you just mentioned it might not be a bad thing. I tend to agree. If it is that we need to move towards more sustainable products, I think we need more than goodwill. I'm not saying that, for me as well. It's like, well, there's a nice t-shirt, it's cheap, I'm going to buy it, looks good. But if those prices do go up, and I think it'll force brands to actually look at alternatives the way that you just mentioned, LSKD and Ryderwear and so on are. So this could be one of those necessary evils to kind of push change along. But it sounds as though, you're 100% right, it sounds as though that the costs are probably going to go up in apparel. And it'll be interesting to see how brands combat that. And yeah, I'd be like, I'm not 100% convinced on some of these recycled polyesters and stuff. Like, definitely, if I'm interested in it, I can't say that I've adopted it yet. Like, I'll be honest with you, I like hemp because it's just a good, comfortable thing. I have no idea if it's environmentally friendly or sustainable.
I'm pretty sure hemp is sustainable.
Is it? Well, that's why I buy it, Mal. Now that you've said that. But yeah, I mean, for sure, like if you want to influence change, impact someone's wallet, and that'll get them thinking a different way. So yeah, I'm interested in this. I don't think it's a bad thing either.
Look, and I think that's something that's absolutely right. Like, we've been trying for years to try to push people towards making more sustainable choices in terms of their purchasing. But it's only until you actually get the stick out that you can tell people all you want. Just like, hey, this is bad. You need to stop doing that. But but the carrot approach has not really worked in terms of significantly changing people's behavior. Otherwise some of these sustainability focused brands would be billions of dollars now. But the reality is that it's a fast fashion brands like Chia, which are worth billions of dollars. But now if you get the carrot out of the fact is that, well, do you know what? We're not going to let you sell it anymore, which means that everyone has to change the game. Everyone has to change what you're doing. So hopefully that starts to change that behavior a little bit more. And there's actually a report that over 70% of apparel has plastic in it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, wow, it's a huge amount.
But that's such a good point, because I feel like a lot of these passionate people who have started brands like Juliet Flora and Fauna and Zero-Co and all these people, and some of them do quite well, but a whole bunch don't. And that's the reality, is they're investing a lot of time and energy, and they're not quite getting the cut through of the profitability or the scale of fast fashion. But as I always say to them, like, hang in there, because you're so early at this, and you can't help but think, like, 10 years ago, I don't know, I wasn't thinking about electric cars. So now they're kind of everywhere. You can't help but think the tide will turn. Maybe this is one of the catalysts for that. And those brands that have done the hard work over the last couple of years have probably struggled at certain times. Hopefully they'll see a windfall in the next 5 years.
Well, look at Amazon. Like, Amazon was one of the very early e-commerce stores. Amazon has been around since like the early 90s. And look at them now. But they hung in there. Everyone told them, like, you're never gonna make a business by selling books online. But yet they've outlasted, the Barnes and Nobles and all that of the world, and grown 100%. And far exceeded them, just because the old Wayne Gretzky saying, you skate where the puck is going. Don't skate where the puck is, skate to where it's going. And I think some of those brands are doing that right now. And this may almost accelerate that change, because suddenly you can't, anyone who's currently using plastics already, like your cost advantage of being able to do things much cheaper because of the fact you're using plastics, you're going to lose that advantage. Because everyone's going to need to move towards, more sustainable materials.
Yeah, that means we need to hurry up with our little side project. We do. As well, Mal. That's got me going now.
Yeah, this is like the 8th time I think we've said this.
It's coming, guys. It's coming. It's going to be good.
Now, one more which we're going to cover off before we wrap is that we're going to talk about Chemist Warehouse, and they have recently announced that they're going public, but not through a traditional IPO. So they're actually going public through another listed brand, Sigma Healthcare, who are acquiring Chemist Warehouse, thereby allowing Chemist Warehouse to go public. I got to say, I've never seen this before, because you avoid all the scrutiny of going through the whole, the listing process of putting together all your documents and registering with the ASX and all that, which actually opens you up to so much scrutiny. But it kind of allows you to actually go to market. Like, it allows you to actually have that event much, much faster. So by IPOing, by not IPOing.
I think this is called, correct me if I'm wrong, a reverse listing, something like that. I feel like I've heard this term before, and I was just Googling it. And I heard this with one of our clients, actually, Mal, in the US, who, when they were trying to list for a long time, just couldn't quite get there, and then announced, oh, we're being bought, or we're buying. It's like, oh, well, what happened? They're like, no, this is how we're going to list. It's like, well, this is way beyond me. Yeah. I feel like it's called a reverse listing. But that's bizarre, like really, really bizarre. Like Chemist Warehouse, obviously a behemoth, and the Pharmacy Guild of Australia, ACT branch, has expressed major concerns over the proposal to reverse this Chemist Warehouse. So, yeah, I mean, this would be interesting to dive into a little bit further. It's really weird, because from face value, I'm just like, why wouldn't they just IPO themselves? Like, I don't quite get it. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's looking
big
like
acquisition.
it's. I think it is a bit of the reverse the what do you say, the reverse acquisition, reverse
Reverse
merger,
listing. Yeah,
reverse listing,
reverse listing.
the reverse
Yeah.
listing, because like while Sigma is technically buying Chemist Warehouse is going to be the entity. So is actually going to be the
That's
controlling
right.
entity in all this, and they've shown significant growth. Like I got to say, I've 4 kids, so I'm at Chemist Warehouse at least
Yeah,
once a
same.
week. So
Yeah, I love it.
yeah,
Yeah,
so they're a great brand. They've got fantastic branding. Like you just know exactly what you're going to get
yeah,
when you walk in there. They're
true.
bloody everywhere right now.
Yeah,
They paid out dividends in the last 2 years of 365 million and
yeah.
264 million dividends,
Wow.
which is
Yeah,
just crazy. So what a fantastic business. We'll see whether that one gets blocked at any stage. If there are concerns about anti-competitive behaviour,
yeah,
but it's just
yeah,
another interesting way, off the back of what we were talking about in the predictions webinar yesterday, that
yeah,
IPO is not the only route to having that
yeah.
sort of liquidity event. That there are other avenues now, such as either an acquisition or a merger, to be able to grow. And that's another conversation I was having with a VC this morning, about what does VC look like, for e-commerce, since D2C businesses haven't really been able to take off with their IPOs,
Mm.
whether the next round of investment is really going to come from investing in that vertical integration or horizontal
We
expansion.
spoke about that on the webinar. I think that's really really interesting, and I think yeah, I'd love to see more of that. That's super exciting. I think especially the vertical integration side. This is a weird one because I was reading it laughing. It's like reverse takeover. It's like please buy me, but we'll be in charge. It's like
Yeah,
what's going on here? But
yeah.
yeah, really.
It's like Sir Jim Ratcliffe currently trying to buy 25% of Manchester United to have control of the football operations. It's like, okay, that makes no sense, but sure.
Yeah,
We
it's
just need new
like
owners at United.
beyond my pay grade.
Yeah. Cool. Paul, I believe you need to leave, so I am
I got to
going to.
shoot.
You go shoot.
Express.
So,
I got to shoot. Express podcast today, but we got through a bit.
yep. But before I sign off, so thank you, Paul. I'm going to just continue on just a little bit, just to talk about the
Okay,
diversity inclusion project.
no
Paul, we'll see
worries.
you next week.
Bye, everyone. See
So
you, Mal.
that's a great little project which Carmel Zine and Kelly Slessor have been put together. So they've got a great board there which they've assembled to really challenge some of the DEI issues in the e-commerce sector at the moment. So they had the first event at La Lagos, I believe it's called, in Sydney the other day. Very well attended. And I got to say, it's a welcome change to see an event like this, given the importance of representation in the industry. And as someone who is a minority themselves and immigrated here when I was quite young at the age of 5. I've been here for 38 years now in Australia. I've experienced a lot of that. So being able to see the importance of that, and even over the last few years as well through my career, seeing the glass ceilings, which are sometimes put in place, on either people of color or for women. In particular, it's good to be able to see that there is an organization which is now going to be challenging people, going to be challenging executives in this field to really ask themselves some tough questions. There was somewhere I was with previously where where 2 managers who are doing very, very similar roles, but in 2 halves of the same coin, let's say, were on pay differences of about $20,000. And it was something which, when I brought that issue up to the CEO and said, hey, there was a problem here, the response back wasn't, okay, we need to make that right. The response back was, well, they never asked for a pay rise, and that's what they signed up for. Which I thought was an incredibly backward way of looking at things. So that's something which I'm really happy that there's now an organisation here which is hopefully going to start challenging a lot of that. And then again, also later in my career as well, also seeing people of Asian or Indian descent not really get a look in for senior roles. And again, with a recent interview which I've been in, I've had someone comment to me about we're unsure about their ability to communicate, whether they're going to understand the culture when speaking about someone who was from China, which again I thought was perhaps a little bit narrow. Rather than thinking about, let's embrace that diversity, let's embrace that different way of thinking and that different way of communicating, because it might make us all stronger. So rather than pursue a monoculture, I'm really glad that we are now going to be tackling this issue head on, to be able to create more opportunities, for people from disadvantaged backgrounds, of color, of whichever gender or whichever persuasion, to be able to find roles in e-commerce. So that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Paul for the full time, to be able to do a full-length episode as we wrap up the year. In the meantime, we did do the 2024 predictions webinar the other day. So the slides for that are available now. So if you would like a copy of the slides, feel free to message us either on LinkedIn, go to the website, ecomnation.com.au, and we'll be happy to send you a copy of it. In the meantime, have a fantastic Christmas. Actually, we'll speak before Christmas. Have a fantastic weekend.